Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the first of our series for the Race and Climate Justice workshops, where we are going to be using this space to basically present the 13th framework and, more importantly, show why you cannot address the climate justice movement without race involved. I am Craig Poku, one of the volunteers for the Racial Justice Network, and I'm really glad to, I guess, introduce this session. So to begin, we're going to start with grounding. So Mama D is going to take over, and then afterwards, we've got a program which we're then going to follow through, which will then end with a Q&A at the end. So Mama D, it's over to you. Question, did anybody just hear everything I said for the last 2 minutes?
Yes, I've heard you and I'm about to start. Sorry, I just had to unmute myself.
Okay, I'm sorry, because I for a moment thought that I just muted myself and I just did a whole speech and everybody, I'm very sorry, everyone. Mama D, it's over to you.
Thank you. You know, you're good. So I trust that everyone is also good. Beginning of the rainy weather. We give thanks for that. We give thanks for life. So welcome to this launch of a series of conversations for the race and climate justice sessions of RJM. So a grounding, we're thinking about a grounding, meaning becoming accountable to our relationship that we have with the earth. So that's how I'm holding this as a grounding. Our greetings to all who are present. For those who are not fully present, we call you in. All of us, we acknowledge the life that's within us and around us, which also supports us and which we too can be in support of. Here and now is a moment for us to be in acknowledgement of the life that connects us through our breath and our beingness. So asking you to be conscious of your being, which is holding that breath. To breathe is to exercise life. So it's always good to be conscious of our breath, to acknowledge that we are part of life with all the responsibilities that entails. I hope that you're all sitting comfortably and feeling the breath move through your body and out through your mouths and circulating and going who knows where. And you're breathing in the breath that has come from, similarly, who knows where, but into you and into your body and affirming your beingness. So as your body touches everywhere that it is touching, you acknowledge that being who is sitting in that chair, bed, wherever. I want to ask you a question. As much as we may often claim in our works a commitment to the earth, how do we really demonstrate that commitment? Have we really, truly, and deeply recognized and felt with our hearts the capacities that we have for being at one with this earth, this same earth that bears, that carries everything that we bring to it. Just want you to think about that. Yeah, the earth that carries everything that we bring to it. There is nothing, no thing at all that we have taken in or take in that does not first arise in the earth, in the spirit of selfless giving. There is nowhere that we move, yeah, on this earth that is not in some way supported by the complete altruism of earth connection and generosity. We couldn't move otherwise. And also all that we lose from ourselves that is waste in any form, at any level of human organization, is also generously absorbed and reprocessed by this planet. Now, I know people like love and love songs and talking about love, but what greater love? In fact, it surpasses, it extends, it's beyond, it breaks the boundaries of that human word love. What earth is doing for us. How much do we acknowledge that? How do we come even close to being in a place of humble acknowledgement of what earth is to us, and in relation to that, that the fact of our belonging to the earth makes it necessary also to be in full acknowledgement of each other. Because if we all belong to the earth, we are part of the earth. So acknowledging the earth means acknowledging each other, not only across the face of the earth, but also over the deep time of this planet's existence. You know, we owe it to ourselves. We literally owe it to ourselves. And, you know, even though some humans have been foolhardy enough to take upon themselves the authority and misguided perception that the earth belongs to them, and so doing have decided to exploit the earth's body, breath, and substance as if there is no tomorrow, you know, literally as if there's no tomorrow, we really ought to know better. Who amongst us has created life? And I'm not speaking here of artificial life forms, those that are based first upon studying life and then trying to replicate life forms. I'm speaking here of the kinds of creativity that life alone possesses and can reproduce. I'm speaking of being able to generate the capacity to give, receive, and be in the space of the breath that connects us, impartially, without any agenda, and with, as I said before, something that surpasses this human word that we use often, love. You know, the moment that we can answer that question with the honesty that it deserves is the moment that we cease to crave and demand possession of more than that we can reasonably be accountable for. I'm going to say that again, because the moment that we can answer that question with the honesty it deserves is the same moment that we can stop craving and we can stop demanding possession of more than the things that we can reasonably be accountable for. It is a space of and time of acknowledgement. When we aspire towards that space, it is as if, you know, the blindfolds or the scales fall off our eyes and we truly can see all of life in its beautiful nakedness and at the same time its beautiful fullness. In that space and in that time, there is neither unity nor binary. There just is. And in that space and time, we can afford to be completely generous with ourselves because we understand our completeness and the completeness of all beings, none greater or lesser than the other, none with any greater or lesser capacity to contribute than the other. And so we cease to clamor for growth because we recognize that any growth that is beyond our sufficiency must be a cancerous growth. And you know, cancer comes with the gift of great responsibility and accountability. And so, who is the one that has the capacity to rise to the place in which the cancer has no role in the continuity of life? I would like to argue this thing, that colonialism or coloniality is such a cancer. We have not yet arrived at a place in which we know how to look it in the eye and send it back to the place of brokenness from whence it came. For it is such a place and time that it arises. And you know, that place is any place, and that time is any time, every time, or any time. The moment we seek to claim life over and beyond that which we can be fully accountable and responsible for, we are colonizing. We're taking more than we can really be accountable and responsible for. We seek to make these claims because we feel we are broken and lacking. We feel incomplete. And so we steal from others, other forms of life in a variety of ways. And inevitably, we are in no position because of this brokenness and because of the feeling of lack of capacity to remedy the destruction we cause by this extractive behavior. And you know, unfortunately, colonialism is addictive behavior. It manifests in many forms, arising in many places. It bears both the hallmarks of blindness and illusion. For others are emboldened to imitate this behavior, believing that somehow they become adorned by possession. But we have no idea how disfiguring it is of our humanity to carry the weight of hundreds, in fact, of thousands of deaths and deformations on our bodies in terms of what we wear, what we carry, in our places of habitation and work, in the food we eat, the water we use, in everything we interact in this earth for, simply because we have been unable to face the internal cracks and breakages, the wounds, the ancestral wounds within ourselves. And you know, colonialism too, it produces waste. We can never have enough. The waste that tends to accumulate around those, waste tends to accumulate around those who have taken the most. Yeah. But imagine that if in those places where there is most extravagance, the earth was to like implode or explode. But it's not that way because of the scheming, greedy ways of the most broken people, that waste becomes exported. And so the environmental damage accumulates instead around those who cause the least damage. Think about that. We talk of climate change, we talk of climate crisis, we talk about climate emergency, but what is this thing called climate that we study as if it is not the same earth being impacted by the brokenness of humanity? Why do we not call it what it is? Climate change is human degradation. It's the devolution of the human that has become out of balance. Climate crisis is the crisis of human sensibility, the way in which humans are beginning to understand that they are trapped in a kind of paralysis of madness. Climate emergency is the emergency being faced by humans in their inability to control their own greed, namely the trauma that has emerged and is causing so many to be stuck in a vortex of lust and inertia. You know, let us not look outside ourselves. Rather, let us look at each other and look within. Let us not seek to assign fault to the blameless earth. You know, the earth practices everything we can but aspire to. No, let us find within what we call nature and environment the ways in which we can heal our brokenness, beginning first with our breath, and then moving the breath into beingness with our complete selves. Let us remember who we are, and to do this, we must sankofa, we must go and fetch into the root of our beingness as belonging to the completeness of being earth, the completeness of being earth, and the knowledge that that is enough. It is good and it is whole. And you know, if we wish to practice generosity and humility, then let us offer to lend our full support and solidarity to those who have been studying life for long. We know who they are. This is the work that heals, and these are the ones who do not raise their voices stridently, but who simply go about the work of life and who are often punished for it by those who are broken and who are ashamed. Let us close on a remembering. Remember your breath. Bring it all together. Acknowledge the breath of the earth in all of the ways it manifests itself. Aspire to be whole in all the ways you already are. I was going to say can be, but aspire to who you already are. Know who you already are. Ashe, so be it.
Amazing. Thank you, Mama D, for that grounding, for that provocation, and for opening a space. Thank you also to other members of the collective for holding the space, for introducing us here today, and welcome everyone to the conversation. Yeah, how do you follow that? I think we should all take a collective breath if we want to breathe in for ourselves and release. And a deep breath for those people who we hold dear, but for whatever reason can't be with us today. Breathe deeply and release. And then a further breath for the world, for connecting across oceans, across continents, across the cosmos. And out. So everything Mama D gave us there is the 13th. For me, it is about connection. So I will be just explaining a few things about the framework we use within the Racial Justice Network, and between myself and Penina, we will go back and forth with some of these principles. Essentially, as it says in the slide, the 13th is a framework to center racial justice. And as Mama D calls us to do, we must always be grounded with the earth. We must always think about where we are and our impact, not just locally though, but also globally. So it's a call to really think about how we interact with the planet, and across generations, across continents, but also across histories, because we did not arrive in our locations from nothing. There is a history, and I think words and concepts such as colonialism are key for any addressing any repair of the damage that we're witnessing right now. In the chats, it's been brilliant to see some of the books and references people are reading. I've been reading some bell hooks recently on love and the will to change and things like that. And I think what bell hooks does well is bell hooks identifies to terminology. So she uses love as a verb, as an active term, as something that we must keep practicing. But also she also defines how we live under capitalism, not just capitalism, but capitalist, patriarchal, colonialism, and white supremacy as well. Is all these terms, all these big terms. I think we can't just say we are addressing racism. We have to really break it down into the constituent parts of the crisis we face. And when we're looking at the big issues of the day, we have to really recognize how these interact and interlink across different oppressions. So love, as Mamadi invokes, is key to this. And the 13th comes about from realizing how we are at a disconnect from loving the planet and being in harmony with the planet. And the number 13 is a powerful number, which we did have fun conceiving this framework and playing with the idea of numbers, because we live out of sync with the seasons. Currently, the dominant ordering of the world is with 12 sections coming from the Gregorian calendar, that the Romans introduced this idea of 12 months of the year. But we also know that there's a Mayan calendar and other calendars which are more in sync with nature, which use the number 13. This corresponds with the moon cycle, again, corresponding to the menstrual cycle, to earth, to life, to being more in tune. There's other references with the 13, the 13 major joints in the body. So the number 13 is a powerful number, which we use as a way also to talk about how in some climate discussions, this idea of intergenerational, international thinking is removed, and often we don't get to the heart of climate justice, which we're here today to discuss. And so the 13th is an added, is an extra, but it's also foundational. It's a framework that needs to be in all the conversations. So I'd like to invite the director of the Racial Justice Network, Penina Wagari-Jones, to speak on how some of the ways we have implemented the 13th, and particularly drawing out some of the tenets that can help us to conceive of climate justice.
Thank you, Sai. I noticed you did introduce me with my title, but you forgot to say you're also trustee at the Racial Justice Network. So I'm going to share that. And yeah, it's really powerfully kind of grounded, but also worth mentioning that the 13th initially started as a campaign or a response to feeling left out of the 12 recommendations that were being carried through in Leeds. But what we've kind of stuck to and insisted and continue to insist, it's not just a campaign. We weren't just doing it to draw attention to the fact that the internationalists or the three tenets were not or addressed within the other recommendations. What we are saying, which is why Sai says it's kind of like the one that holds everything together. It is a framework of doing and addressing anything climate. And in thinking of it like that, because we have a tendency to kind of like, when situations happen, we kind of come up with a response, and there's always a perspectives, there's always angles that are left out. But if this framework is taken and absorbed in anything that's doing or is interested in doing anything climate, chances are there will not be anything being left behind. And those issues that we've mentioned around the colonial legacies, because of communities that are not able to respond to the situation we're in now, but also situations in equality or global inequalities that still dictate the way we live right now. So when we started at this, we were saying, look at the three tenets, just kind of by word of mentioning, is addressing the colonial legacies, or ensuring that we're putting that at the heart of anything that we're doing, because that still is the power that dictates, that controls till now, coloniality as we'd say, what we see and what we understand to things carrying on or going on now, and continuing to have that international perspective. Again, we said it's not an island. We could say UK is, I know physically it's an island, but what we mean, we don't have an island climate. Whatever is happening elsewhere, the climate has no borders, and therefore the effects of, we're seeing them everywhere. So if we try and think of it, of addressing issues on a local level or regional level or national level, we're not doing anything. So we have to continue to hold that international perspective in anything that we're seeking as solutions. And with this was really like a point that we were drawing to, that even right now the solutions are being considered are still affecting or are still putting the global south or the majority world or communities or least who have done the least in terms of climate damage, they're putting them at harm. When we think about electric cars and what that means, where are we getting this from? When we think of the recycling, where are we sending the recycling stuff from? So it's, as long as we consider that international perspective, it means we're not being selfish as we have done, which is what was shared before. And the third one is around activist solidarity. And this solidarity is, again, going beyond borders, because we've seen how communities are impacted, but also the people who are on the front line defending the planet, defending the land, defending the trees, defending whatever it is. They're not as lucky, I'd say, in depending on what part of the world they're at. Some of them are actually losing life as a result of this. So the activist solidarity, again, needs to be beyond borders. And within this is kind of understanding the interconnectedness of all of the issues that relate to social justice, relate to climate justice. So we were highlighting that, yes, people working on climate can say they're working on climate, but how much do they understand or see or even share about detention, about the criminal justice system? How much do they see the connectedness of all of these issues, of why people are being displaced and being forced to migrate in the first place? So in a way, the interconnectedness of all of the oppressions and issues gives people a wider scope, not as narrow, in terms of what needs to happen. And within this is something around understanding the debt that is also owed, which we've highlighted time and time again. So it's not so much as we're just going in to give and help, it's really recognizing that the damage and the harm that have been caused, and the fact to undo some of this, also to unlearn some of this, we need to be engaging and listening to communities who are not only on the front line and have very little resources, but they're also being most connected to the land, to nature. And we shouldn't be assuming that the knowledge is sitting in here. The knowledge is out there too. So it's kind of addressing, but going at it in ways that ensures we're not exploiting, we're not extracting, we're actually working with communities together. And so that's kind of basically what the 13th is about. And we're saying this is as a way of doing things, but also encouraging others to adapt and see that whatever it is that communities are, because I know right now, obviously, there's a lot going on around locally, nationally, regionally around climate. But if they can adapt, people can adapt this way of thinking. It's no longer about having black and brown faces in a room to tick a box and ensure that, oh, we're not leaving anybody behind. It goes beyond that. And that's what we're asking. That's what the 13th is all about. Sai, I know you've mentioned about reparations and how reparations connect with this, but I'm going to ask you to kind of bounce back on that.
Thank you. Yeah. So as Penina is saying there, some of the solutions we're looking for in terms of solving this crisis are already being enacted and have been known by a lot of our communities in the diaspora and indigenous communities. So in terms of repair, we need to do an accounting of the harm. That's one of the steps that we need to do. We need to talk to our families, talk to our communities, and the first step of repair is assessing the damage. So this we do a lot of work around reparations, which I think we'll talk about in another segment of tonight, around reparatory justice. But that's a key move that we need to push for, because any solutions that we look at in terms of the climate crisis that do not have at the heart justice for the people most affected are not solutions. A lot of the green technologies that we see being advocated for continuing the harm, and so it's really vital that we do take note of peoples who are on the front lines of climate crisis and who have been living, as we've said, in ways that are sustainable and who have some of the answers. And I think we need to move really humbly and just connect with those people in our communities and learn from them. And that's the real repair. Repair cannot come from above, from people who have harmed, from governments, from corporations. It needs to be agreed on by the people who have been harmed, and that has to happen in community. And it is not about money. It's money is an aspect which can help, but it's also about the repair of the damage of languages, the damage of communities, the damage of history, the damage of philosophies, wisdoms, land, obviously, all these things that have been lost. There's so much that's been turned on its head in this time we're living in that we need to really reorientate ourselves towards. So I think now we're going to hear from a couple of the people from our collective who have been applying this framework within their work. We've got Craig and Melanie. So if one of you would like to speak on how you've applied the 13th.
I can go first. So firstly, hi everyone, so I'm Craig. So a bit of background, I am a researcher that was based at the University of Leeds, but now I work in the air quality space at the University of York. And for me, the 13th has allowed me to deepen my own thinking, but also kind of reapproach the way in which I sort of approach the climate movement. So it was really interesting because by being in this collective, it allowed me to, I guess, unlearn quite a bit of the colonial behaviors that I had, in the sense that a lot of the times when it comes to trying to address the climate movement, it's still this idea of we need to engage these people don't want to engage, when in actual fact, what this group definitely showed me was the idea was Indigenous communities have been addressing climate for hundreds of years, but the West don't appreciate those methodologies. And so for me, what I've been doing in terms of applying the 13th is basically through my own deepening of learning. Whenever I see a lot of my colleagues talking about how to address the climate emergency, I then kind of go, is it a climate emergency or is it climate justice? And what I've been doing for the last year is essentially allowing them to reevaluate the way in which they kind of think about the climate justice movement, ensure that they're taking a more international approach. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect, but what I am saying is that this space has allowed me to, I guess, through deepening my own understanding, actually go, this is the solution in order to address the climate justice movement. So that is a bit from me. Melanie, I guess you're next.
Hello everyone, can people hear me? I hope that's a yes. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Melanie, and honor my ancestors first and the land that I'm sitting on at the moment, which is Colombia. And it's such a privilege to be listening to everyone speaking about implementing the 13th in an internationalist perspective, with me being in this community, as you can hear the community life in the background, what the 13th means for me is to regain agency of language first and foremost. I've done a process with myself of relearning the words that I've learned to refer to my own body, to refer to processes with communities, processes with reparations. And what has happened is that I've become part of a collective called XR Youth Solidarity, where we accompany, and such a privilege to be linked with communities of resistance in Africa, Brazil, and Colombia, where they are trying to dismantle fortress conservation. So conservation, in an essence, has been manipulated in a way that seems to say that people are not compatible with the planet anymore. And so our solutions and our methods has been to challenge the idea of the human and planet dichotomy that has emerged from the separation from more natural ways of living. And what has happened is that we've designed people's assemblies with communities from the Maasai, particularly addressing future evictions, trying to displace them from their ancestral lands in the name of conservation, and highlighting the fact that it is a pure contradiction to separate humans from their land, as the land is a keeper of all knowledge. And so it is important for me to share this, as obviously I would like to join and invite you to be part of this space that hopes to continue to listen to Indigenous peoples from all over the world and challenge conservation. So I'm sharing a couple of links to previous meetings that we've had, and a link to our Signal chat. Our next People's Assembly will be on the 13th of October. Here we will be finalizing a proposal to develop an XR youth coalition of different movements to continue to re-implement and address the lack of internationalist activism within XR. So that's our purpose and our mission. And just to finish, I'm really grateful to be here. And last internationalist perspective for me is to regain access to my own ways of knowledge. And for that, I present you with my medicines that are here with me today. This is the coca leaf, the mambe, and the ambil, tabaco, that are my teachers. And yeah, reconnecting with that is also part of my activism. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Thank you to everyone who's spoken. It was all very powerful and very appreciate. And it's amazing being able to connect to you internationally, Melanie. It's a privilege. So we were going to have a quick break, but seeing as we're running 7 minutes late, I hope everyone's okay if we skip over the break. I think we haven't been here too long, so hopefully everybody's feeling okay. If you need a quick jump up and walk around in a little stretch, please feel free to do it. But yeah, just in thinking about time, we'll skip that. So I'll pass over to Seb for the next section, or to start the next section.
Yeah, thanks, Caleb. Also, I just thought we should just flag up to everyone that there was initially an idea that we might be, that this session was going to go on until 8, then it was advertised to go on to 7:30. So we are aiming to finish by 7:30, but we're encouraging those to stay on for an extra half an hour for Q&As if they have time to. So I'll just, for going on to the next section, which will look into the groups that emerged last year. I'm just going to outline some of our principles and ways of working together that were really key in sort of shaping how we related to each other last year. So this group, the Race and Climate Justice Collective, emerged from shared conversations that aim to highlight the interconnectedness of climate to racial justice and to universal oppressions rooted in colonialism. So this is what we're, as this evening, is be talking about, what we refer to as 13th framework. So on top of the reasons that we've already heard from all these amazing speakers, the framework is motivated by a desire to move away from seeking and relying only on Eurocentric solutions to the interlocking crises we're in. So we try and reflect these in these principles and ways of working. So firstly, we recognise that a certain point of understanding needs to be reached before our actions or reactions or results can happen. This is the threshold we need to cross before we can make any progression in our reasoning. Working predominantly with marginalised and racially minoritized communities to take positive and effective action, we value work that's collaborative, open to learning, and sharing that recognises the vast knowledge skills within our communities. Secondly, as a collective, we also contribute to and shape the rights and responsibilities that we all uphold. It's important to recognise, however, that these must be understood through the objectives of Racial Justice Network, and we hold the same standards. So Racial Justice Network is committed to centering those who are most marginalised and mobilising Black and Brown communities to take effective action for reparatory justice. Centering, however, does not involve extractivism or re-traumatising. And relatedly, the third principle is, so like the collective called Building the Anti-Racist Classroom, we use activist Hanley Ramos's idea of a principled space to make the provision of safety for all involved feasible. Principled space guidelines adhere to an awareness of one's privilege and being aware of when one needs to step back so marginalised people can lead. These principles are written in recognition of existing power structures, and while they're intended to apply to everyone, they keep in consideration the societal power dynamics already at play, which perpetuate anti-Blackness and promote white supremacy. So now we'll go into the groups that emerged last year, and hopefully that'll give you a bit more of a context of the different sort of subgroups that are ongoing at the moment and how you can get involved. So I'll hand over to Craig and Caleb.
Yeah, thank you, Seb. Yeah, since we've only got 4 minutes, it's just going to be me, and Craig can chip in anything if I missed something. So yeah, the meetings and talks was kind of, I guess, the structure that the group has been following for the last almost 2 years. And, you know, we decided quite recently that we wanted to continue that. And it's about kind of, as Seb touched on, organizing and holding this collective learning space. And some of the sessions that we've done before is a kind of contextualizing of the 13th, which is kind of quite similar to this session, and kind of we're looking to reboot the sessions again. So this is our kind of way of starting that up again. We also have done one on what is solidarity, colonial connections, and case studies. We've looked at and met with activists from Kenya and Brazil. And then we've also looked at what solutions and responses. So that's kind of just a quick overview to give you a sense of what might be coming up. And also, I mean, there was the amazing talk that I imagine some of you went to where Esther spoke, and that's on YouTube. So I highly recommend going and checking that out. And a key tenet, which is what Seb touched on before, but I'll just touch on it again, is that it's kind of collectively run by the attendees. So Craig, Seb, Melanie, myself, and others, some who are here, some who are not here. we kind of all came together through being members of this group, and have started to organize and help to facilitate it to progress. So that's a key tenet. And I'm just going to touch on my personal experience quickly, which is that I've found the space it's incredibly special, and it gives me strength and energy. But also it's a valuable space, obviously, for us all to come together and learn about crucial issues. So I'll leave it there, and Craig, you can let me know if I've missed anything.
I mean, you've covered all the points I was going to make. So just really to reiterate that learning space, because sometimes in the day and age that we live in, we kind of want to have a solution now. There's this idea that we need to act now, we need to be doing stuff right now. But there is a benefit in having a space where you are deepening that learning, because through deepening that learning, you can actually make the right solutions and the right suggestions going forward. And it takes us away from this very colonial way of competition that we've basically been adapted to. That's the benefit that I've taken from this space, and it's sort of what I apply to my day-to-day space, like life, really. So just mirroring what Caleb said, basically.
Amazing, thank you. And then I think we're passing on to Penny to talk about external interventions.
Yeah, thanks, Caleb. Yeah, this bit was more, and I think it's just kind of similar to what has just been said. For me, I've also found this space incredibly, awesome in terms of learning about sharing and holding the space. So it's not the same people. It's not like knowledge is being held by one place or one perspective and not the other. It's been quite shared, and that openness to learning, which is what the principles that Seb was reading earlier, has helped not just with the sustainability as well, because there's some of us who are able to do and be there more and others less, but also the knowledges that are exchanged. So the idea of obviously continuing and wanting to return to continue some of the spaces for all of us to learn, but also take that practice externally, because I think some of the challenges we've faced or we continue to face is where there's an assumption of where the knowledge is held. The knowledge is held sometimes in academia, the knowledge is held in people who speak better English, and knowledge is held So the idea that actually knowledge is shared and discontinuing that epistemicide that we continue to see everywhere is something that's really valuable, but also good to sustain our own energy. So the external interventions kind of is similar line that we wanted. Now that we have this framework of the 13th, we don't necessarily want to keep it to ourselves and say that we only the ones who know how to do things. There's lots of effort and energy that's put out there, people challenging work that's being done or being criticized. So some of the learning that's need to be taken from there is, what is it that people weren't doing? And we're saying we have a recipe of what needs to be done. So, but that has also meant, because there's few of us, majority it's been taken to external spaces like Friends of the Earth and other spaces that I'm invited to speak about the work that we're doing around race and climate justice. And the idea is also, again, to invite people who, once they've had a grasp of what the 13th is about, to come and learn a little bit more, but also be part of us who are going out to share this recipe in a way, or this framework in a way. So it's not just the same people, meaning me and a few others who are more familiar with it. We're inviting more people to come and learn and understand it, come and join the space and learn with us, but also learn the 13th in a way that you're able to take it to the spaces where you're doing. Because one of the things we definitely recognize is most of the people who are within the race and climate justice, because we started this in March of last year, and then we've kind of went through the whole year of having monthly meetings. Most of the people who stepped up, people who've come forward, are people who are not only interested in climate stuff, they're also doing stuff to do with climate. So this learning is to take it to wherever you are, whether you're a teacher, whether you're an activist, all of those things. So So yeah, the invite is also for if there is anybody who's interested, because I know I've seen a few familiar faces when I was looking around, and I know some of those familiar faces are also the ones who I've said no to in terms of being able to take or go and deliver a talk. If there's other people who are willing to join me and others within the Race and Climate Justice Collective to learn about the 13th and then take it to the other spaces, that is also welcome. And that's a small subgroup that we are also willing and wanting to take forward. Yeah, and then now I'll pass on to the third subgroup, which is Sai and Melanie, to share about what is also upcoming or one of the plans that we have within the next few months, maybe years. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah. So also sharing the the gratitude for this group over the last couple of years and the the learning that people have shared. So yeah, reparations, as we've said, is a key framework again that we use that holds everything we do around racial justice. We interact with the reparations movement internationally in a number of ways. One of those is through the reparations march that takes place in London, which is more than a march. It's a real mobilization of communities to conscientize and educate around reparations. And related to that and the work of our patron, who is Esther Stanford-Jose, who's been mentioned before, and we have an interview and talk with her on YouTube, is the work of getting councils to declare a reparations motion. And this has been successful in quite a few parts of the country, or several, Bristol, Lambeth, and Southwark, I think. And that follows on the back of councils declaring climate emergencies. But it goes deeper in terms of really giving the language that there is harm, and there's all the language we've talked about of colonial legacies. So it's asking, it's working with councils to really forward this idea that we need to have this framework, the 13th framework within any plans going forward. So that's one of the collectives as part of the race and climate work we do, and we're going to be holding a meeting, which I think Melanie's going to speak on the date of that, where we can get together and see who's willing to, or who's got connections to the Green Party, for instance, who's led the motions in those places I mentioned, and to really build a coalition that can take this forward. So Melanie, do you have anything to add on that and potential dates?
So we've agreed on a meeting for the 21st of October at 4 p.m. London time. So I will be sharing the link in the chat. I will be part of the admin of that group, and hopefully we can get to know each other and experience transformational regenerative spaces, because RGN is that for me. Thank you.
Okay, amazing. I think it's my time to take over. So we're going to do, we're going to open up now to some questions. So probably best for this, Craig, do you mind to stop sharing? Or should I? Yeah, fine, let's do that first. Wicked. Okay, cool. So if people want to raise hands, you can either do it physically or with the reactions button. Let me just close that. So yeah, anybody got any questions? No worries if not. But is anyone from our group of facilitators, was there anything that we feel like we missed that we maybe want to highlight again while people are thinking? If not, then I I guess we can close early. Maybe I shouldn't have said that now. Everybody's just thinking about going home. Oh, got a question. So Dave Barnes asks, is there a draft reparations motion for councils we can look at, please?
Great question. There is. So we will be sharing all this. We'll be speaking with Esther, who has a framework. It gets quite, some of the nuances of building a consensus across party consensus and everything. I don't fully understand, but because it has been successful in other councils, then yeah, there's definitely a steps forward that are advised and that we can take. So if is that something you're interested in, particularly in getting involved with, David? Do you have any party affiliations?
Yeah, I'm interested in it, and I don't have any direct party affiliations, but I know, I'm kind of familiar with the process of how to get motions through councils, and the people you need to talk to and make friends with. So I'm definitely interested in getting involved in that and seeing. I've only got contacts in Leeds City Council, but it's something that I would like to try and see if we can take forward in Leeds.
Brilliant. Yeah, that'd be excellent. Let's connect and talk, because obviously Leeds I think is where a lot of us are based, but also Bradford, and I think we can see which sites have most impact, or where the most energy is, and take a cue from other places. That'd be great.
Amazing. Thanks for that question, David. And Mama D's just nudged me saying that it's not just questions. If you have any comments, please feel free to make a comment. Like Raina, apologies if I mispronounced that, but just expressing her gratitude about how wonderful it is to be here. Okay, we'll go to Sarah Fishwick, who's got her hand up. Go for it, Sarah.
Hiya, yeah. So I teach in a school, and so much of what everyone's been saying tonight, it really, really resonates with me. And I'm thinking, yes, I would love, well, to some extent already have brought some of this into school, but would love to be able to bring more of it into school. And I'm wondering how that fits in with anything that you do in terms of your sort of, going out and speaking, or in terms of what you're thinking about as a group, how that can be taken into schools more. Is that a possibility?
I'll respond to that one. We have had requests, as I said, to in different groups, in different working groups on staff, for example, in Bradford and in Leeds, and again nationally. And the idea is definitely to go. What I would suggest is maybe linking and sharing links, or at least contacts with us, so we can do. There is the demand for the talks, and the demand for us to step into spaces is much more than capacity, which is why the creation of a subgroup of people who are willing and are either not totally, even if they're not totally confident to go and speak, but at least willing to learn about how they can take it to other places, is one way of sharing that workload. So if you share your contacts, then maybe we can connect after and see how we can do that. But yeah, definitely the idea of going to schools, the idea of going to other places is something we want to do, and share all these perspectives and angles on it.
Thank you very much. I've put my email in the chat. I'm just, even specifically thinking about Black History Month coming up, and what an opportunity that is when schools are looking around wanting to do something about Black history, to connect that with climate justice, and to connect that with what we've been talking about, extractive colonialism. It makes absolute sense. And if we could, I don't feel like I've got the knowledge to put something together, but I would be able to really happy to work with somebody and kind of, you know, make whatever that was appropriate to primary schools. And just so many primary schools would take that up because they're looking for, you know, different ways to approach Black History Month, for example. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
What I'd also add, sorry, Caleb, is also we have got quite a bit of material as well online on our social media, and including reports that we've done, because the Race and Climate Justice is one project within many others that we do. And if there is anything that you can pull from there, we ask people to cite where it's come from, or who's done it. But if you can pull stuff from there for now, then definitely do that. But the connection will be good and better in the long run. So back to you, Caleb.
Thank you, Penny. Yeah, hopefully we can facilitate that. But yeah, maybe I just want to echo that it is a bit of a capacity issue at the moment. So anybody who does want to kind of get more involved, whatever capacity you do have, you can kind of, please do kind of reach out and see how you can get involved. Okay, I'm just going to run through some of the comments in the chat. So Aidan saying, interested in introducing the 13th within the training course I deliver. We have already begun work that's aiming to decolonize our curriculum, but there's a big shift needed. Would like to develop this further, as in some ways I feel isolated. Also interested in the declaration. Thank you for the comment. Aidan, would you like to come in and say anything else on that? No worries if not. I can't see you.
Hello.
Hey, yeah, we can hear you.
You can hear me, lovely. For some reason, my camera is disabled. That doesn't matter. Yes, it's obviously Sai has known me for a while, and I'm familiar with and have been very supported by the work of the Racial Justice Network. I'm happy to, as I say, get more involved if it's appropriate and I can contribute in various ways. But also I'm working with a participatory community theatre company in Liverpool who have a radical agenda and work with communities in struggle. And we're developing all sorts of resources in partnership with those communities. But one of the things I think we've got a lot of learning still to do and a long way to go, particularly as it's a white-led company, although we are trying to change that. But it would be good to get the 13th and the framework that is embodied within that more into our thinking. So obviously that's something I can take on, but any help with these resources and so on would be greatly appreciated. I'm not asking for more time from the network, but just some help with the resources, some help with approaches is very, very useful, as it's quite a complex negotiation that I've been engaged in for the last year in introducing some of these concepts. Sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Sometimes it's the other way around.
Amazing, thank you for that. Did you manage to persuade anyone to come to this event?
No, I did pass it on to a particular. We have a kind of anti-racist working group of people and we have been studying. We've been doing our own anti-racist learning based on some of the ideas and principles that I've already learned through the Racial Justice Network, and also from reading and studying that we've been doing. So that I have been persuading members of the group to come to events like this. And somebody did come to the Esther's event as well. So it's just gradually getting there, but sometimes it's useful to, well, firstly, I find it very useful to check in with these events because it strengthens my resolve, but just having access to sort of ways of bringing these agendas in, keep coming back with these agendas, keep returning with these agendas until I can get them integrated into the work that we're doing. So advice and support with that is very helpful. I mean, obviously, in a way, this meeting is providing that, so it might be enough. I don't know. I know how busy everybody is. I'm also very happy to, contribute in the way that has been suggested, if it's felt that that's appropriate for me to do so.
Yeah, of course. I'm sure we'll go. Well, I mean, you can share your contact with one of us if you like. Otherwise, I'm sure Sai can connect us.
I'll do it now.
So I know that Mama D had her hand up first, but is yours a direct comment, Mama D, or should we go to Craig, which I think might be a direct comment?
Mine was a direct comment.
I think Mama D is happy for you to go first.
Thank you, Mama D. Firstly, hi, Aidan. Secondly, that sounds like you're doing some really good work. I just want to give you a bit of perspective because for some of the stuff that I've been doing, because a lot of my colleagues are basically implying that decolonization means diversifying the workforce. And the reason that it's very dangerous territory to basically try and mix the two up together is because a lot of places will be like, decolonization will basically fix everything. So I think that coming to this space and coming to this group will allow your workplace and the people that you're working with not try to feel as though like it's a decolonization tick box, which is something that this space has been very good at allowing me to ensure that I don't do. And it's something that I talk to other people about. I've heard a lot of people recently kind of basically just clump it all into one umbrella, but it's a lot bigger than that. And if anyone here in the collective wants to also interject, please feel free to, but that was just the one point I wanted to make, just so in that way, if your colleagues come in and say, oh, this is a quick exercise, it's like, it's really not. So that's it.
And thank you for that, Craig. That was really nice, really important. God, nice, that's such a throwaway word. Apologies. Mama D, do you want to jump in?
Yes, that was definitely a very important contribution, Greg. I just want to remind people who are present, who are perhaps a bit hesitant about coming forward, making a comment or asking questions, to just remind you of what was said in the grounding. I think people are aware of the critical nature of how things are now. And life itself, the earth itself, is waiting for your particular step, your particular movement. And I'm sure that most people here, you're here because you are already doing, really important works. But just like, I think it was Penny who said about the shared knowledge that sustains is then genuinely shared knowledge. And it's that solidarity between ourselves, it's that coming forward, it's that, I've seen examples of support in the chat already emerging, but it's, step forward into yourself, really. That's what's happening. Kind of stand up and be counted kind of vibes, really. So just encouraging, this is just an encouragement.
I love that. That was step forward and be yourself. I think that encapsulates a lot of what I was thinking. Yeah, I maybe just want to come in and say that, I'm part of the team, but I still feel very anxious about, kind of this topic and whether I know enough and, whether I can take it out and be a valuable asset, to convey the 13th and to really make an impact. And I think maybe my point on that is just that I'm sure all of you, because you've been here and I've seen many of these names crop up at many of the other events, that you do, I'm sure you have a lot of the knowledge already, and to feel more confident to go forward and do that. Obviously, it's always good to have a little bit of humbleness. Well, not even a little bit, a good old chunk of humbleness, but not so much that you're what's the word, immobilized. Anyway, that's just my little comment on that. All right, we'll go back to the comments in the chat. So Paul Chatterton comes in with wonderfully inspiring stuff. Just a possible connection. There's a negation, I think that's right, how you say it, of Zapatistas and Chiapas, or from Chiapas, in Europe and potentially coming to Leeds later, late October. Many of you might already be linked up already, but if they do end up coming to Leeds for a couple of days, it'd be great to see them join forces with the 13th. I don't know if anybody in our group knows about, well, I mean, definitely heard about it, but yeah, is there any connections being drawn currently? Head shaking. Okay, cool. I guess that's something we can look into. Jane comes in with, I'm willing to learn more about the 13th and all the principles, and when ready to go share it in other spaces. Thank you so much, Jane. It's great to hear. Julie, thank you so much for all the work you've done to create the framework for the 13th. I loved Mama D's opening up of the space by connecting us to the earth and encouraging us to notice what the earth is giving us. I love what you are doing with RGN and how you've made this an international space. It gives me so much hope. That is a lovely comment. Thank you so much. Okay, and then are there any others? Sorry, just scrolling. Heather says, Sarah Fishwick, I'll email you rework in the classroom, if that's okay. Oh, sorry, you've already answered that question, Sarah. Just catching up. Okay, I think that's all the comments in the chat. We still do have maybe like 5 more minutes for questions if needed. So is there anybody else who wants to, questions or comments, sorry. Is there anybody else who wants to get something in now that we're all in the same room? It is a great opportunity to air something.
Hi, it's
hi.
Edwina.
Hiya, go for it, Edwina.
Hi, I'd just like to mention with Black History Month coming up now, the fact that, I mean, I'm in Leeds, and the fact that we've got Harewood House just at the top there, and we should all know the history involved with Harewood House. For Black History Month, I don't know if it's, I think it would be a good idea to have some sort of input over October with Harewood House. I know the previous speaker was talking about primary schools getting involved and how she could instigate sort of Black History Month around the primary schools, but I do think it's a bit of a opportunity missed in terms of how Harewood House came about and its function, its current function. And I think the Geraldine O'Connor Foundation is one arm of supporting communities through the arts that Harewood House is involved in. But I'm just wondering if there's some sort of the fact that it's History Month, Black History Month, and the history of Harewood House. I think maybe an event or some sort of event in October for this at Harewood House, possibly. I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there.
No, yeah, thank you for that. And thank you for drawing attention to that. I think Sai's going to jump in. Go on, Sai.
Yeah, thank you, Edwina. Some of the organisations you mentioned would be worth people finding out about, I think, definitely, because I'm aware that the Geraldine O'Connor Foundation are currently doing some work with Harewood House. Also for people who are based in Leeds, I know not everyone is, obviously, but Heritage Corner do a lot of work, which is Joe Williams, our people's historian. So that there is education around, you know, these sites of which are built from the enslavement of Africans that are happening. And yeah, obviously Black History Month, October is speeding towards us. It's always packed. It's always, you know, so much going on there. So, you know, there's not just October we can look to. It's obviously something we can do all year round as well. But yeah, these are good things to raise and to start thinking about what we can do. And on the education side, I'd also say, I'm involved with several educational arts projects. So I think I'd be interested in linking with people as well around how we can, develop resources for schools, and I'm always interested in contributing.
Thank you both for that. Yeah, just a direct response to that in the comments. Sarah says, thank you, Edwina, great idea. Okay, since we have 2 minutes, I'm just going to read a couple more comments, and then we'll go to Mama D for the closing. So Sage says, thank you very much for everyone who has presented and contributed to this powerful ongoing work. Paul comes in again. Also, we are really excited about the link between Climate Action Leeds and Racial Justice Network. We are doing an induction program and got one scheduled for November on climate justice. Andrew Methevan, not sure how to say that, is leading on this, and he might have been in touch, but if not, heads up. We'd love to link up on this. And then Anisha, on Paul's note, I'm wondering what people think about climate activism in Leeds and how inclusive it is of the values we've talked about, the internationalist perspective. I don't know if someone wants to come in on that quickly, or
I'll jump in quickly. And Anisha, I know I've seen your email, and I think we're due to meet next week, so I'll probably get more into that answer or response when we meet. But I think this is the journey that we were describing that we didn't delve too much into. There are obviously, there's a lot of groups that are aware, but there's also a lot of groups that aren't aware about these values or internationalist perspective, which is where the 13th came from. I'm sure Paul has also probably given you a little bit of that too. But we're hopeful, and we still feel like it's something that we're working towards to get to a place where there's more kind of understanding of these other issues that we've kind of mentioned. So we're not there. I'm not sure how long it'll take to get there in terms of activism in Leeds, and not just in Leeds. I think this is everywhere else. Which is why there's so much work that's been done out there. But we're working towards it, or working towards it.
Thank you, Benny. We've got a comment from Naomi, which has just reminded me of something, but we'd like to hear how to get more involved. I guess if it's open to attend your monthly meetings, and with a view to support with external facing stuff eventually. So we are going to ask you to, if you're interested, join the RJN mailing list. But if you are interested in being in touch with our specific race and climate group, if you put your email into the chat, then I can say that at the end, and we can put you onto a slightly smaller internal mailing list where you'll get things more specific to this group. And also, I wanted to say that this has been recorded and put on YouTube. I hope that was okay. We did forget to mention that at the beginning. Sorry. Okay, and on that awkward note, I will pass to Mama D.
Hope it can be softened, Caleb, by saying it's about accountability, right? So we're by being present, we're really, really present, and recognizing we have to take on the responsibility of attending meetings like this and seeking to learn more. There were a couple of announcements. I don't know, I haven't got them right here, but on the 20th, well, the 21st has already been mentioned, of October, where there's the meeting that Melanie has spoken about, and Sai, to prepare, talking about reparations. And then there is also, thank you, Caleb, for sharing the screen. And then also on, if you could share the previous screen, maybe. The 26th of October, as part of our regular ongoing meetings. There's one on reparatory justice, so you can attend to learn more about that. And then the following month, we start talking about rights and responsibilities on the 30th. So you're very welcome to attend these sessions and to be able to learn more and get more involved. And really just want to say, in kind of closing this very full session. Julie, I hope that that yawn coming loud doesn't mean anything.
Oh no, it's just me releasing oxygen to my brain. You're doing great. I'm loving it. Sorry.
So just to reiterate what was said earlier on, that neither climate nor greed has borders. So us centering internationalism, means that we have to consider that solutions too have no borders. Yeah, and that it's not about a short-term face-saving representative kind of movement. It really is about it really is about a principled activity, that enables things to happen, like what Melanie was saying about regaining a language of connection and treating climate justice as absolutely internationalist, using the principles that Seb talked about being collaborative and open and learning from communities and the most marginalized. These kinds of principles have to be front and center of how we move ahead. Otherwise, we're not moving ahead. We're just, treading in the same space. And so the framework that is being presented through the Race and Climate Justice Group and its working, but by RJN, is the powerful 30 number, as I talked about, is what is required if we are really to undertake the work of planetary healing. Because as I said earlier on, it's, we can use the climate as an emblem, but it really is about us. It's about how we work, how we be, how we relate, how we communicate, and how we connect. And if we are principled about those things and use, this gift of a 13th framework, we can actually do the work that's going to move us to a more elevated state of humanity. So endorsing that so much, it's so important. There's our contact details. Get in touch, talk to us, offer to do the work, because solidarity is solidarity. It means genuinely offering the labor that it takes to actually get things out and done and materialized. So thank you all of us for staying with us throughout this session, and we trust that you're going to echo it across the spaces that you all inhabit. So ashe to all, blessings to all, more powerful work going forward.